Well. Welcome, my friends, to this fine audio, video, radio, and podcast program known as Smokin' and Toastin'. We are all about craft beer, fine spirits, and hand-rolled cigars, and we are live at one of our absolute favorite places in the world, not just because they're a sponsor, because quite frankly, and don't tell them this, I'm only going to say this because Jeremiah is not, seated with us right now, but I'd still love them even if they weren't a sponsor. I'd still come here and eat and drink.
The steaks here, the Chef Tommy's bacon.
Woo! I'm telling you. We're at the Houston location, which is at 1814 Washington Ave in Houston, and they've also got a location in the shops at Clear Fork in Fort Worth.
You'll notice we set up today with this beautiful Houston skyline in the background.
Yes. And you'll notice, as also is the custom in Houston, I don't know if it's the case where you live, but it is impossible to go outside any day after about January 15th of any year and not hear a leaf blower somewhere. And so it's consistent today, actually. That's working. Actually, I don't know what that is. I don't know if that's a leaf blower. That's some sort of
that's actually a jackhammer.
Some sort of mechanical device that
I don't know if the mics
makes noise,
up,
but
we
yeah,
should have that isolated.
Yeah. So we probably should. But hey, welcome to the show. It's show number 95, Ian, which means we're only 5 shows away from our big 100th episode, Smokin' and Toastin' Free for All. I'm really psyched about it.
So much fun.
So for those of you who haven't heard us talk about this before, we're inviting back, and we've had so many people on the show. Many of them live in different, cities and states. It won't be possible for them to all make it. Who knows if more than 2 or 3 will make it? But we're inviting everyone who's ever been a guest on the show to join us, plus a few other people, to join us for the 100th episode. And it's just going to be smoking and drinking and absolute chaos. And I think it's going to be a party. I'm looking forward to it.
Smoking and toasting free for all.
Yep, it's going to be great. It's going to be great. So we do want to say thanks to last week's special guest, Josh Noel, or Noel. He never confirmed that either pronunciation was correct. He just said either one works. Yeah,
he said both are fine.
Josh is a columnist for the Chicago Tribune, and he also wrote the amazing book called Barrel Aged Stout and Selling Out, Goose Island, Anheuser-Busch, and How Craft Beer Became Big Business. And ladies and gentlemen, please welcome, making a grand entrance, our special guest, Mr. Jeremiah Butler. Jeremiah, we thought we'd get started on the show. We didn't know you were going to make an entrance with an Ashton VSG, though. That's very, very impressive.
I wanted something versatile. I didn't know what we were drinking today, really, so I didn't want to just immediately go to my deep, dark, Maduro hole.
Yeah.
Which is normally
I brought a sledgehammer just in case you wanted it.
Oh, wow.
So
I need a permission slip for that.
The camera can't see that, but Ian brought along one of those. Would you say you need a permission slip for us?
Sure.
That, my friends, is a rocket fuel powerhouse of a cigar.
Man of War of Ruination. Look at the size of that Solomon right there. That's crazy.
That's pretty serious. So, all right. So you're cutting into the VSG, getting lit and getting started.
I'm getting going. You guys talk amongst yourselves.
You've already started with a cocktail. What are you enjoying?
I am drinking Nika coffee grain. So 100% corn, Japanese, made on a coffee still.
Nice.
My wife loves that one.
Yeah, it's a good one. They also make the coffee malt and then the coffee gin. And a lot of confusion with the coffee term, but if you pay attention to how it's spelled, you realize that it has nothing to do with coffee.
Nothing to do with coffee as we...
it's coffee as the name
Starbucks.
of the patented still. So it's a 2-chamber continuous 2-column still. Really, really cool thing, really cool process, but good juice.
Well, Jeremiah, we brought along the beers today, but we did think we'd probably let you choose the spirits.
Oh, yeah. I've got some stuff.
Okay. I figured you had something we can enjoy. So back to our special guest from last week, Josh Noel has written a fascinating book, and I couldn't recommend it higher if you have any interest in craft beer, or for that matter, in any craft industry of any kind, and how it relates to big business. It's called Barrel Aged Stout and Selling Out, Goose Island, Anheuser-Busch, and How Craft Beer Became Big Business. It's a great read, and he was a great guest. Enjoyed having him on.
I got to tell you, that book actually brought me back to my college days. Not because of the content of the book. The book was fantastic. It was quite engaging. I enjoyed it tremendously. But it brought me back to my college days because I didn't know until about 3 days prior that we were going to have him on the show.
Oh, yes. And you hadn't started the book yet, had you?
I hadn't started the book yet, so I was cramming. So I didn't sound like a total idiot.
Come on, you don't read that guy? No, your book about that thing is great.
I
the words and stuff.
Here's the thing. Even though I was cramming that book, it was engaging. It was not difficult to do.
Yes.
I didn't have any trouble. And it forced me to sit outside with a cigar and my Kindle night after night for hours. It was,
brutal.
Absolutely brutal. He was so fun too. His whole dialogue with us was such dialogue. There were three of us. I don't know.
Well, what an awesome, like, just the content. Like, I don't know, the subject matter is like incredibly engaging. I think, like, because we talked about that on a couple different shows.
Honestly, it's been
when it happened. Like, I remember when Carbach happened. And like I believe it was you, me, and Wingo, maybe.
I believe it was.
We were up here. Yep. And that was insane, but like, I mean, Goose Island kind of like paved the way.
Yep. Well, it was the first major craft beer. To go 100%.
Right.
Exactly.
And to be honest, like, I mean, I don't think their beer suffered. I mean,
I don't think so. We talked a little bit about how maybe the Honkers Ale isn't as good as it used to be, because we did try that last week.
312. But here's the thing: like, I didn't personally try those before the buyout.
Yeah.
So I don't have a basis for comparison. I think what I decided on the Honkers Ale and the 312, I didn't think they were either very special.
Yeah, absolutely.
However, I could look at them in kind of a historical sense. If that's what they were putting out far enough back, that was, beer with flavor when there wasn't a whole lot of beer with flavor.
Well, that's right.
It makes
Yeah.
a big difference.
Absolutely.
When Honkers Ale came out and you had it instead of a Budweiser.
Oh,
it
yeah.
was like a
It's a
revolution.
huge thing. Absolutely.
Right, absolutely.
So, was it Sierra Nevada, before the IPA world? Like, all of a sudden,
Absolutely.
wait, what are these hops? Like, why does this taste like citrus and awesome?
Ian, I know you're a fan of the Sophie, which we tasted again last week, and that's a Goose Island
beer. We actually carried
beer.
that here, but it's hard. It's a little harder to get these days.
Yes, it is. And I also talked about how I had looked for the Matilda, which was another beer kind of similar to the Sophie. It was a very experimental. I've still not been able to find Matilda, but look what I did find for today's show. Ladies and gentlemen, the Goose Island.
Wow.
Yes, the Lolita. Lolita is a wild ale, and it is a Belgian style wild ale. So we will be sampling. I've never had this, so we will be sampling that today. I'm going to put it back in its case here so it stays nice and cold. Yes, crawl back right in there. So yeah, we have good stuff to taste. We're going to taste that. We're going to taste the Samuel Adams Sam 76. This has been part of Samuel Adams' entire revamp of their line. Most stuff that Sam Adams was putting out a few years back, with the exception of Samuel Adams Boston Lager and some of the mainstays, is gone and has been replaced by something new, and in many cases something exciting. One of the big early successes of this revamp has been a beer called Sam 76, and Sam 76 is I don't know what the right word is. It's a merging of an ale and a lager. So it's a lighter beer, kind of an easy summer drinking kind of beer.
That sounds fantastic,
We'll be trying that out today. Plus,
I hope they didn't get rid of that cherry wheat.
no, that's still around.
That's good stuff.
That's still around.
That's good barbecue and beer right there.
Yes, that is. I'll tell you what else is good. We have never had a beer that we didn't like, well, except for one, and then he admitted that he was testing us from Lone Pint Brewery. We had the brewmaster on the show, and he brought everything in growlers when he came on the show. And then he tasted one, and I saw him watching us. We were being nice, but we were like, well, this is not my favorite. And he's like, yeah, this one's not very good. I thought I'd see what you guys thought of. And I was like, this is one we tried. It didn't really work out. And I was like, wow. So anyway, they make, in my opinion, the finest IPA that's being sold today, and that's the Lone Pint.
I was just about to say, I think maybe the finest IPA that there has ever known.
It's amazing. So today,
I hate to say that to like in case anybody from San Diego, where Stone is listening.
Yeah, I know, because those guys take their IPA very seriously.
And they make some good ones.
Yes.
But that Yellow Rose IPA changed my life.
Today we are going to see. I thought I was the only one who would say it in a
guy,
hyperbolic way like that.
Neither am I, though. That's what I'm saying.
Desert Island IPAs, okay? Mm-hmm. My Desert Island IPAs will be Dogfish Head 90 Minute.
Sure.
Yep. I mean,
that's just raging aggression, though. That's awesome.
Because it's amazing. It would be the Lone Pint, and it would be Two Hearted Ale from Bell's. Those are I think, on the readily available shelf ones, those are the top three that I know of.
That's it, Ian. Show number 101 is going to be desert island beers. We'll pick 5 styles, and we'll comment. We'll make a list about what our desert island beers would be in each style. Within each style, yeah. So IPAs. We'll talk about maybe barrel-aged stouts. We'll talk about porters. Whatever we'll figure out the categories between now and then, what they should be. But that'll be a lot of fun.
Just saying Lone Star better make somebody's list here.
Lone Star is my favorite. I've only got $2 in my pocket, and I'm still in college beer.
I am not adverse to having a 12-pack of Lone Star in my fridge just being out on a hot day.
I'm telling you.
There's nothing wrong with a really cold Lone Star.
I like the really, really, awesome whiskeys and all that, but I'm telling you, I slum it when it comes to beer. Like, a lot. Like, I do.
We are going to take a quick break and be back with our second segment. When we'll start our first tasting, we'll talk about our cigar tastings. But before we do, I just wanted to say hi to somebody who checked in on Facebook as we're on Facebook Live. Gail Stein. Gail was my science teacher in 7th grade.
Outstanding.
And
Hello,
she
Gail.
had such high hopes for me. And here I am hosting the
now
show
look what you've
about
done.
smoking and drinking. So
Hey, distillation is chemistry.
that's right. Oh. I like this guy. We are live at
There
B&B
it
Butchers and
is.
Restaurant in Houston. Our special guest, Jeremiah Butler. And we will be back to do some tasting coming up next at Smoking and Toasting. So I have my little thing here, and I keep bumping my cigar on it and ashing all over it.
One more of those ashtrays.
Yep.
That way you can, not stop.
All right.
How's that cigar so far?
Good. It's starting off a little milder than I was expecting, but it does look like a milder Connecticut wrapper. I'm just wondering if it powers up as I go.
It's 95?
95, yes. And the title is Whiskey and Food Pairings at B&B, even though we haven't talked about that yet.
No, we're going to nail him down. Does he have any idea?
No. So we'll mention this to him here momentarily.
I don't know what was going on. Like, it might be at first. Or was it coming in? I don't know if there was that. It was just kind of losing.
It might not have been plugged in all the way.
Yeah, maybe.
So.
It's fine now.
That's okay. Everything I said earlier that you couldn't understand, you missed it. It was the best things ever.
Here we go. Now we can all.
You're just coming in really low.
That's like the other day, my wife's like, I've got my contacts out. I can't really see. I'm like, and I am more handsome than you've ever known.
Absolutely.
Like, at this point in time, right now.
So, I went to Ready Room last night.
Oh, did you? What'd you think?
Yeah,
I've been
I
over
love
there
it.
too.
It's one of my best friends in the world.
It's like
Peter.
cocktail. Oh yeah, he's a super nice guy.
Yeah. That's literally one of my best friends. We worked together for 7 years through 3 different restaurants before I came here.
Adam's fiance, my future stepdaughter-in-law, is a manager at Ritual and is friends with those guys.
Oh, cool.
They took us out over there for Father's Day and my wife's birthday, and we went over there and drank some cocktails and had a good time.
Let's do a cocktail show.
What's that?
I'll talk to Peter. We should do a cocktail show and record it at Ritual.
We've talked about doing that, actually.
Yes.
Good idea. What I love is how difficult it can be to bring you in on board with an idea.
Not only, Coach, will I do that for you, but I'll do that for you.
I want you to know I put a lot of thought into that answer.
That's right. I can tell.
All right. So I didn't tell you this, but we do want to talk a little bit today. I've got a couple of articles to refer
About
to,
the
but we really
Great
want to.
Barton collapse?
Yes, that's it. I've got that too.
Oh.
But we do want to talk about whiskey and food pairings, like kind of like 101, like
absolutely.
like how to start if you haven't really started that before. So, and then maybe you can talk about some specific things that are on the menu here
Yeah,
and what they
I'm
pair
doing
with.
a Glenfiddich dinner on Tuesday. So
Oh, perfect.
I literally talk about how I paired it. But you've got to talk to me about this one.
That's a beast. We're going to talk about that right now.
Yep. Here we go. Ready, segment 2. Welcome back at Smoking and
Quite
Toasting.
intriguing.
And in the so those of you who listen to the podcast audio of the show, you do miss out on some of the stuff that happens in between. And one of the things that happened in between here is Jeremiah was commenting on the beast of a cigar that Ian seems to have lit up. So let's open with that, Ian. We are live, by the way, at B&B Butchers and Restaurant, 1814 Washington Ave in Houston. It's also in the shops at Clear Fork in Fort Worth. We'll be paying that a visit very soon. And Ian, we have lit up and are all enjoying cigars, but yours looks to be maybe the
best package.
The best package for sure, yeah. Although I have no complaints about the Ashton VSG packaging, but that's pretty good.
Yeah.
This is probably one of the coolest boxes I've ever gotten, or tubo that I've ever gotten.
It's pretty sweet.
So a tubo is when you get a metal tube that the cigar comes in, you usually unscrew the end. And, those are handy. Like, I usually buy some cigars in tubos because then I can just toss a cigar in my pocket and I'm out and about.
Well,
if you're going somewhere you don't know, you don't want to.
Speaking of my days in college.
Is that a cigar in your
Yeah, that's right.
All right. Anyway, but then if you get a chance to smoke it, that's great. And if not, then it's fine. You're not tearing up the wrapper. I mean, cigars can be
the
pretty
cigar
delicate.
doesn't get dehumidified. Right, yeah, exactly.
Because they stay pretty well in there. But I saw this, and this is such a beautiful tubo.
Are you
This is
showing that
actually
to the
kind
camera?
of a
Yeah.
square tubo.
Because it's a
rectangular
box
tubo.
press cigar.
Because
so
it's
that
a
makes
box
sense.
press, so they made it the exact same shape as the cigar. This is an Avo Syncro Nicaragua box press Toro.
Rest in
That's the
peace.
size, and it's like a medium powerhouse, if that makes any sense. It's got so much toast and butter in the flavor. This is very different from a lot of cigars I smoke in general. It's got toast, butter, campfire.
In my experience,
Nuttiness,
Avos,
lots of nuttiness.
the sort of standard Avo line is a really good lighter cigar.
Yeah, absolutely.
But I've had some of the, like the Fuego. That is a wonderfully complex medium
Absolutely.
to full.
Absolutely.
What are you thinking so far on this?
So this has just a ton of great flavors. The initial light on this had just a kiss of spice, no harshness whatsoever. As you can see, it's burning beautiful. This is burning faster than I was expecting, but not faster than I'd want it to necessarily. And like I said, if you like a medium, this is on the lighter side of medium, but the flavor is just so big and complex. And it's all those things I just said. It's nuttiness, it's toast, it's a little bit of campfire, it's classic cigar. It's everything you want in Avo, and it's every bit as complex as you want an Avo to be.
Wow, that's good.
Nicely done.
Emphasis right, complex. Complex.
Complex. Yeah, a complex is a place that includes a number of different
It's
structures
every
or
bit
buildings.
as complex.
It's complex if it
It's
has
complex.
complexity.
Noted.
Yeah, there you go.
Thank you, Professor Cruz.
Well, if
I
Gail
think I'm
Stein
more
is still
confused than I
watching,
was before.
if Gail Stein is still watching, who was my teacher in 7th grade, she'd be proud of the English lesson that I just laid on you. Let me also ask you about the VSG, Jeremiah. I mean, that's a cigar that a lot of people are familiar with, but boy, is it a great go-to.
I was just about to say, for me, it's a go-to, especially like when you're outside during the day. It's hotter. Like I said, like the Maduros can be a bit much, which is like most
Sure.
of my go-tos tend to be like kind of more dark, aggressive smokes, just because I tend to drink aggressively. I tend to drink high proof.
I like that. I drink aggressively. See, that's not
high proof, very heavily peated a lot of times. But for today, I wasn't sure where we were going, so I was like, just a nice go-to. The VSG or the ESG, the Estate Sun, is also nice. But I mean, this, it's that classic, leather, nicely toasted, nothing heavy, very delicate. And with the coffee grain, 100% corn, it's kind of a cool back and forth.
Yeah.
This has got like a sweetness that I think is accented, by the cigar. So you get kind of as opposed to the like of like deep dark smoke with deep dark peat. It's kind of a cool, more back and forth. But I mean, this is just
It's one of those
You can
cigars
never
that
go
like
wrong.
you cannot go wrong with.
Yeah,
Exactly.
absolutely.
It's just if you're kind of looking through the humidor and that's there, and you see some other things that are new that might be good, some other things.
It's exactly what
that's
happened
good.
today.
You know that one's going to perform. Yeah,
100%. What happened today?
Absolutely.
Which, by the way, I wanted to say something like part of like the cool advert, like we talk about in the restaurant industry. You take your first bite with your eyes. 100%. You take your first drag of that with that tube.
There's no question about it.
It's cool and like all Italian. And we carry the basic Avo here in the humidor, and that's kind of my intro. If you get somebody that says, "Hey, like I'm here with my my company, we're all smoking cigars. I don't do this very often. Where would you recommend?" I almost inevitably will go with the traditional Avo classic.
Yes.
You know, it's just, it won't turn you green.
Right.
You know, well, because I mean, honestly, like
But
you,
it's got
you'll
a
see
nice,
that guy,
solid, toasty flavor to it.
Maybe
you know?
maybe he just got into the law firm or
Right.
whatever, and you know, I can't say no, and he gets handed this like monster T52 Liga Privada, you know, and 10 minutes later, he's, you know, I'm not sure this was a good idea.
Sweating
Right.
and drinking nothing but water.
Shaking.
Like, hand that back to somebody who can handle it. Let's give you something that fits in your.
And not that the
fits in
Avo
your
isn't
palate.
complex or
No, it's
fantastic.
a great cigar.
I don't mean to.
It's just on the lighter
Absolutely.
flavor profile.
Yeah, absolutely.
Absolutely.
Well, speaking of lighter flavor profile, and I haven't started drinking yet. I got this out of Ian's little, very nice leather La Palina travel humidor.
Which
Thanks
is still
again.
Thanks
awesome.
to Clay Roberts.
Yeah, to Clay Roberts, yes. But this was an Aladino, which I didn't know until I'd actually pulled it out of there and said, okay, I'll smoke this one. But this is a Julio R. Arroyo cigar, and the cigar that Ian reviewed last week was an Arroyo, and he was also kind enough to give me one of those. People who've watched the show, like for a couple of episodes here, may have the idea that I mooch a lot of cigars off of Ian, and you'd be absolutely correct. But what
Well played, sir.
what
Well
I was
played.
going to say, and I said this before the show started, but your review was spot on about that Arroyo. It was complex and full and wonderful, and one of the most enjoyable cigars that I've had in a long
It
time.
takes you on a flavor ride. That's,
Right.
Yeah.
So when I picked this one out, not knowing it was an Arroyo, I didn't really know what to expect. It's a little lighter color, like a Connecticut wrapper. And so I lit it up, and to be honest, at first it was just kind of mild and toasty. Didn't know whether to expect it to develop more complexity or whether it was going to be similar to maybe the Avos that we were talking about, just
Certainly.
a very enjoyable mild smoke. Well, I'm maybe a third in, a little past a third, and the complexity has now come on. I've got the sort of like tingly pepper notes on my tongue,
yeah.
and it's heating up to I'd say a definite medium in terms of
Nice.
of strength, but it's just got that very sort of what I'll call a light complexity, which makes me think that this is going to pair very well with just about anything that we go
It's
to.
a great roll, by the
Yeah.
way.
Oh, it is.
Right.
It's a beautifully made cigar.
Beautiful cigar.
Beautifully made cigar. And you know, with as much as there's been, you know, issues with crops and issues with supply and demand and from so many companies, I've been a little worried that we were going to see overall cigar construction begin to suffer a little bit. So this is now the second Arroyo I've had in a week, and on both. Look at that burn! Like,
I mean, it's
perfect,
beautiful.
perfect burn. And the other one was perfect burn
Yeah,
all the
and that
way down to the nub.
That
And
was
you'd
one of the
mentioned that
things,
too.
Yeah, that I mentioned on mine
Yep.
is the burn was amazing on it.
I'll have to pick up
So-
one of these.
Yeah, so I'm very impressed, and I think you would enjoy that. So, one of the things we want to talk about on today's show is whiskey and food pairings.
Absolutely.
And I thought it would be good for us to start at the beginning. We've done a number of shows here at B&B. We've talked about pairings of whiskey and cigars quite a bit, and we will again today, of course. But whiskey and food is becoming a bigger and bigger deal in terms of pairings, and some
Absolutely.
people may not really even know where to start.
Well, I think spirits and food as a whole
Yes.
are coming more together. Not even just whiskey.
I think you're absolutely right.
I mean, you know, if you think back 20 years, like, you know, spirit pairings with food was essentially really, really cold vodka and raw oysters. And that was kind
Right.
of like the classic idea
Which
of
makes
like,
sense.
Absolutely.
And I think traditionally we also think like cocktails after food.
Absolutely, or before, right?
before, right.
Exactly. You know, that's you start out with the dirty martini, then you have wine with dinner, and then you finish with a whiskey cocktail of some kind or a whiskey, and that's kind of, you know, the steakhouse progression. Mm-hmm. Whereas now, especially with don't hate me for saying this, but like the millennials, like generations younger than me, it's become much more of a prevalent thing to pair cocktails with their meals, or to not go into that bottle of wine with your dinner service necessarily, because that was always, you know, the classic recipe. And so for me, and here it's a little easier because we don't necessarily have like a ton of composed plates. It's, you know, meat and then other meat
sides, right.
sides, that kind of thing.
Sure.
So it's a little less complex here. but nonetheless, even other places that do compose places are really doing it. Like there's a couple restaurants that I think that have phenomenal Brasserie du Parc, for example. Or even like Better Luck Tomorrow, which is part of that Anvil Tree, where they do their food and it's a cocktail bar. I mean, yeah, they have great bubbles and wine, and those guys do a killer job. But at the end of the day, I feel like most of the time when I see pictures on social media, people are eating with a cocktail.
Right.
And so when you're pairing a spirit, specifically like we want to talk about whiskey in this example, it's kind of not that different from the wine approach in that there's kind of two directions you can take it, where you can go similar, like with like, or you can kind of do the contra. So, for example, let's say I'm doing a big rich steak and Italian wine, right? I'm going to be kind of focusing on the richness of the steak and the acid of the wine, right?
Right.
And if I was to do maybe a composed plate with steak as the feature, I might look more into like a Bordeaux or like something that kind of has a little more complexity to kind of play around with the flavor profiles that you're going.
A little more fruitiness to it.
Well, or even more vegetal, like depending on what's on the plate, kind of thing. But you're kind of looking more at that like. You're looking to pair as opposed to contrast.
Right.
And with whiskey, I think that, a lot of people get afraid because it's such a big thing on the palate.
Right.
And don't forget you can add water. There's nothing wrong with that.
Yes, and I am a firm believer, like, this is whiskey with small ice cubes because I wanted it to melt. So there is like a calculatedness sometimes. I'm not just a white trash savage who likes dimple ice. But when you're pairing, the thing that I look for is, especially because here obviously our food is our food, I try and find a way to really have the whiskey shine, or whatever the spirit is.
Right.
So you want to look more at like what's going on in this whiskey, and like what food item do I have that's gonna like really tie it together. So like you guys have had David Allerness on the show before. He's coming on Tuesday. We're doing a Glenfiddich dinner. So the first course that I did was, or I'm doing, is going to be like a baked oyster with some herbs, and then we're going to actually put the Glenfiddich Project 20 single malt on the oyster.
Nice.
And then pair it together with that whiskey. So the idea is...
So there's some of the single malt on the oyster itself.
Absolutely.
Right.
Which is very classic. Like a lot of what you'll see will be like a really heavily peated, like a Lagavulin, like a couple eye drops on a raw oyster, which is phenomenal, by the way. If you have not tried it, I highly recommend it. And so especially like, Fiddick is such a cool blend of like kind of craft and raw like flavors that it really works with that idea. And so like the idea is at that point there's a touch of like salinity and kind of savoriness to the Project 20, and just this like slight touch of smoke. So by baking the oyster, you really bring that flavor profile to the front, and it brings it when you eat it, and then you go to taste the whiskey, it's really going to draw that smoke and salinity out.
Fantastic.
And then, when you go into like a main course, it can be a little trickier, but at the end of the day, like, you just don't want to overpower. And then, just think like this is aggressive on your palate, so you don't necessarily want to go like heavily salted things, like unless you're doing like you want to go again to contrast, like bourbon and bacon, which we've done on the show. Salty, sweet, savory, all that good combination. And so for me, it just kind of depends on the direction that you want to take your pairing.
Well, when you say pairing too, you want flavors that interact with each other, and that can be either complementing each other or contrasting each other. It's interesting, and much like a color palette. You can have two colors that complement each other.
Yeah.
Or you can have two colors that are stark contrast, and both can look great. Well, your food and whiskey pairings are going to be much the same way. However, depending on the shades of those things, they may also interfere with each other, and that's what you want to avoid.
Yes, and that's what I say. Like, you don't want to like, the same way when you approach wine, you don't want food that's going to overpower a really delicate, subtle wine, and you don't want, you're not going to crack open like a big monster wine with this really, delicate, subtle, you're not going to have like, table side, hot rock cooked turbot fillets with a huge Amarone because the fish will go away. It's like it's literally just at that point something to be in your mouth.
Right. Well, what is this beautiful sound effect that's coming up?
It's one of the world's most awesome sounds. Will you pass it over to Adam? He's going to handle the pouring for us. Here.
I remember
grabbing that.
I'm going to let Adam take care of that.
All right, thank you, sir.
I remember your high-tech sound machine from the original days. It's incredible.
Yes, we still use it from time to time.
Oh, well, I should hope so.
We just don't want to, we don't want to over technologically burden the show. So using that sort of a device could
it is only 2018. That device is clearly in 2020 or maybe later.
Maybe later. Yeah.
Yet we take a minimalist approach, so we keep the device small.
Right.
Well, it's very humble of you guys.
That's how we roll. That's the way we like to play. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Oh, I was just gonna say, but at the end of the day, like the big thing when you talk about pairings is like, don't be afraid to just have what you like.
Right.
Like I tell people all the time, if somebody comes in here and a lady wants a 55-day dry age ribeye, or a guy, whoever, if someone wants a 55-day dry age ribeye with a Chardonnay. Or whatever. Hey, by all means, drink what you like.
Yeah, right. Some people may appreciate that.
And that's the thing. It's like I don't live in that guy's palate. Like I drink and eat some weird combinations. I'm pretty sure. So, I mean.
Well, speaking of interesting combinations, an ale and a lager combined together is what Samuel Adams has done with Sam 76, and this has become. One of their better sellers in their line in a very short amount of time, it's just now summer.
We were at the House of Blues the other night.
Yes.
And I saw that they had this there. I didn't try it, but I saw they had it there, and I was intrigued by it. Mm-hmm. So I ultimate respect to Sam Adams, though, for being one of those revolutionary brewers that really brought craft brew to the forefront at a time when it wasn't even existing.
And for figuring out how to survive when they became kind of in that middle space between the big brewers and the little upstarts that had all the funky, crazy, different kinds of beer that were coming out. And Sam Adams is now a slightly more mainstream craft beer, but does that work in today's craft beer world? So they've had to reinvent themselves. Sam 76 is a more mainstream attempt, but I will say not a lot on the nose, maybe just a little bit of hoppiness, but not a lot on the nose. I'm going to
go ahead and say this. So on the nose, I get a little bit of lemon, citrus, kind of thing. I get a little bit of your basic beer smell. Your basic. It's got a little citrus.
That lager.
It smells much like a lager. On the flavor, it's lighter than I assumed Sam Adams would come out with. However,
because their Boston Lager is not a light lager at all,
and it's phenomenal. That is very. When we talk about a go-to beer, like if you're when in doubt, if you walk into that weird bar and you're like, I don't recognize anything, but I see the Sam Adams, like I'll start there.
Or all you have is the usual suspects that sell, the cold activated can and everything. Sam Adams is a way better choice.
Absolutely.
Now, I'm going to tell you, this is clean and crisp.
Yes, it is. It's
almost
very,
too much, but I kind of like it.
Very summer friendly.
This is a dangerous beer.
Like this to me will immediately take that. We talked earlier about having Lone Star when it's hot outside, having it ice cold. This is probably just taking that place in the very first tasting of it, like instantaneously.
I will tell you, there's something on the finish.
You say that. I think Lone Star is owned by Russians right now.
Yeah, but at least there's a star involved.
That's good. That's very quick and very good. There's something on the finish here that makes this more interesting to me than most other beers that are as light as this is. If you were to compare this to any beer that has the word light on it, whatever brand light, This is far more interesting. Now, I don't
Yes.
know that it's lighter in terms of calories. I can tell you that the ABV is 4.7 on.
That's good. I can
I
drink
will
like
tell
12
you,
of
if
them.
you are
yeah.
a light beer person, you
Yes.
will probably like this beer.
If we had tried this in the light beer taste test,
It
this
would've
would have been
been-
my number one,
Yeah, it would've
hands down.
This kind of, for me, is kind of one of those like it's like light beer for actual beer people.
Right.
This might be
But,
the
you
latest
know.
beer that I like.
Right, that's
Right.
and that's kind of what I mean. It's like, so for like true beer aficionados, because like I will openly admit, like, I like beer, but I am not as far down the beer rabbit hole as I am the spirit or wine.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like, I like beer, but for me, it's like, what's your favorite kind of beer? I don't know, the cold kind.
Yeah.
You know, so like a lot of what we've tried, like in my experiences with y'all, is actually like some beers that I have and haven't had. But to
Right.
me, this is like a light beer for people that actually drink legitimate beers on a regular basis.
Right.
You know,
Now-
like if I go to your fridge and you don't ever have what I would consider like the go-tos, right?
Right.
This is the light beer for you.
There was a Samuel Adams Light.
Yeah.
And
Which
I
is
bel-
great.
I
That's the
believe-
Boston Lager with less
Yeah,
calories.
I believe it's maybe not still in their portfolio. I liked it, but I don't like it nearly as well as I like this.
Yeah, and this is, again, it doesn't say light beer, but it fits
Yeah.
that. It fits that. Like, I don't think this is.
I would hope there was
Great
a lot of
taste.
this consumed yesterday.
Yes, one would think. Well, between the very patriotic,
I love the
name,
patriotic can.
yeah, and
I
can.
absolutely love that. They have great packaging on. You know, they've redone all their packaging.
Yes,
on
they
this
have.
stuff.
Oh,
It looks
absolutely.
great, too.
Rebel IPA is a great new packaging.
Yeah,
and-
yeah, and that's a great
Well,
IPA too.
I-
I
Yes, it
will
is.
say that is one thing that I might say got a little less amazing to me with Goose Island is their new labels
Yeah.
are not as cool. Like the old labels for the Goose Island, like the Sophie, that real simple white that just said Sophie, and like had like the
yeah.
silhouette of the goose. Like, whereas
Well,
now
yeah.
it's got the print, like the box lettering,
It's-
and
yeah,
like I have
yeah.
the IPA here. And
Yeah.
I'll show
Well, the
you guys in the
IPA,
break.
they've fashioned that packaging after what they did, and they talk about this in the book when they came out with the 312 Urban Wheat Ale,
yeah.
which became the best-selling craft beer in Chicago at
Yes.
the time that it came out, and I think may still be, assuming that you're not disqualifying it as craft beer because it's from Budweiser. But they went with what they considered a younger packaging,
Yeah.
and I think that they have adjusted packaging on some of their other brands to reflect that sort of younger
Yeah, which is, hey,
look.
you know, it's great.
But I still like the classic
Well,
Goose myself.
Yeah,
I'm with
well,
you.
and I'm only loyal to what's inside the bottle. Like
Right.
you can package it, and I mean, I have drank things out of brown paper bags that were amazing.
Well,
so.
speaking of the Goose, we will get to more of that coming up, and we'll be trying the Goose Island Lolita Belgian Style Wild Ale 2015. And I don't know if I ever got through to this part, but you know how we were talking about that Lone Pint Yellow Rose IPA,
Yeah.
and how it makes all of our IPA Desert Island lists? Today we're going to be trying Lone Pint's Imperial IPA. And this will be very interesting because
Sounds regal.
Imperials are always bigger, fuller, and if you're not careful, Imperials can be what Ian has so well described as much like chewing on a pine cone. We'll
they,
see.
They walk that slippery slope
Yes.
pretty quick.
So we'll see how our friends at Lone Pine do with that. Plus, I think you're going to choose some sort of a whiskey to taste here, or some kind of spirit.
Yeah, we're gonna do something
Yep.
cool today. I think.
And we'll talk a little bit about the Smoking and Toasting 100th show free-for-all, plus an update on the Texas cigar lawsuit. Some things changed pretty dramatically this week. It's Smoking and Toasting. We're at B&B in Houston, and we'll be right back.
Yeah, I'm intrigued to hear the update on the lawsuit.
Yeah, well, not necessarily great news.
Yeah.
Hey, Adam. Yep. Will you adjust the video so we get just the tops of the buildings, and I think we'll get our faces a little better because it's kind of dark.
Yeah, it's gonna happen if the light's coming this way, not that way.
Right, but I think if we eliminate some of that, we'll get a little bit better light.
I'm personally okay with my face being almost completely obscured. I could literally drink like 15 of these fucking beers.
They're really, really easy
This
to
is
drink.
a dangerous beer.
Yeah, this
If
is.
you turn me loose with my
Probably
barbecue
more
pit in
dangerous
about
than the
104
Imperial
degree
IPA
heat,
will be, yeah.
oh, absolutely. But like, I mean, like, this is one of those like you don't even realize it. You look down and you're like
That's-
fishing around in the
and you
ice.
know what?
Yeah, right.
Wait a minute.
Where'd they go?
So I'm intrigued as well. Like, I bet like mine got a little bit flat, and a little bit warm by the end of it, and it
Yeah.
was still delicious.
Yeah. You want this one cold, but you're absolutely right. It still has flavor.
Well, that's
even
one
as
thing
it
that I think
dials
that
down.
like is cool about Sam Adams is that they make that sort of mainstream beer that you want cold, but even
Something I didn't mention is that beer just like paired right in with this.
it really, man, I'm telling, like I was, I'm
got
not
it.
gonna lie,
We're on.
fully surprised.
You back up.
Yep, we're up.
All right. You seeing your face a little better there?
Hope nobody's seeing my face very well.
Yeah.
Yeah, that looks a
Really,
lot better.
really, just for them, not because I'm like hiding from anything.
All right. Sorry,
All right.
Facebook, for the technicals.
Do you have an opener, sir?
Go ahead.
Underrated? Yes.
Well,
I think.
he's what like 'cause when my old man turned me on to Mark Knopfler back in the Dire Straits days
Yeah.
when I was growing up, and he always referred to him. He's like he's your favorite guitar player's favorite guitar player.
That's a
You
good
know
way
what
to
I mean?
put it.
All,
Yeah.
all the guys that know guitar and like truly understand good guitar playing, like even the flamboyant, like your Joe Satriani's and your Steve Vai's, and like you ask them like, hey, who's the top 3 guitar players of all time, and like he inevitably makes their top 3.
Oh man.
Like
Mark
the
Knopfler's awesome.
the Mark Knopfler Chet Atkins album.
Oh,
Absolutely
so
a
good.
knockout. Like if you added Rye Cooter into that to like throw all that slide stuff he does in, like on like Talking Timbuktu, like I
Yeah.
mean, speaking of like whiskey, a cigar, and a CD, like,
We should totally do a music show. We should totally do it.
oh, that'd be awesome.
Here we go. Segment 3. 1, 2, 3. Welcome back, my friends. It is Smoking and Toasting, and
And here we go with the Jabberwocky
Yes.
Imperial IPA.
I don't know if I mentioned the title of it, and I don't know how well you can see that, but this
Jabberwocky.
is okay. So this is only the second Lone Pint beer I've ever seen in a bottle.
in the same bottle. And it's
Yeah,
the same
and
size
it's the
bottle,
same
too.
size bottle. Yeah, different label, obviously, but same size bottle as the Yellow Rose. This Jabberwocky Imperial IPA is. Let me just do a little.
And by Imperial,
quick
he
scan.
means 8.5%.
Yeah, 8.5%, and it's
114
unfiltered
IBUs, I see.
and unpasteurized. And I'm going to pass that over to Adam, who will come and grab it and do the pours for us, since we're holding mics here today. But I'm really excited about this because Lone Pint, honestly, is one of my very favorite breweries.
Absolutely.
That Yellow Rose, we've talked about it so many times on the show. It's just unparalleled as far as a very drinkable IPA goes.
Great
and so
beers.
much of what he brought to us on the show that day was just absolutely delicious. And that's a good show to go back. If you're going back and looking for that show in our show archive, it's the one that's entitled Best IPA Ever, and they didn't bring it. Because he didn't bring any Yellow Rose to the show. He brought
Yeah, but he
other
doesn't
stuff.
need to.
Yeah,
I mean, that's the
true.
thing. It's like
Because it speaks for
because
itself.
I think the Yellow Rose is why they started making the 20-ounce bottles, because
I
like
think
there
so,
were
yes.
people that were like, I'm not going to commit to kegs, or I don't have draft, but I got to have this beer.
Yeah, that's right. That's
You
right.
know?
One of the cool things about it, about that particular show, is he brought a bunch of stuff that you can't get.
Yes.
You know, which I think is awesome. It's kind of like when you go to see a band and they play only their old stuff. Like, that's fun. I get a lot of people like that, right? Me personally,
You want to hear something new.
I like seeing what a band does. I want to hear
Absolutely.
new stuff. I went and saw, this was like probably 10 years ago, but I went and saw Iron Maiden, and they played for the first, I guess, hour and a half. They didn't play anything old. Like, they played all new stuff, and I was like, heck yeah, and everyone around me was grumbling, going, I want to hear the Trooper. Don't you have that album?
Yeah.
It's on like 3 of their albums. They got like 2 live albums plus the album that came out on in the first place. I love to hear a band do something.
Absolutely.
I saw Prince once in Chicago in a really cool theater. I don't remember the name of the theater. It was when he had the Diamonds and Pearls album out.
Yeah.
Oh,
So
yeah.
he came out and opened the show by performing that album in order in its entirety. And then he took a break, came back with Dearly Beloved, And did all hits for the second half of the show.
See, that's
and
fantastic.
The impact of, after you'd heard this really interesting music, some of which you maybe knew, some of which you didn't, for the first half of the show, and then the second half just hit after hit after hit, you left going, that's one of the best shows I've ever seen.
Absolutely.
You know? It was just, it was all of that. It was very cool.
Well, like for me, it would be the most recent time I saw The Sword, because they just released their like new album, Used Future, and they've definitely, for those of you that don't know The Sword, awesome 4-piece metal group, but out of Austin, but like they've really like progressed over time. I mean, like I've been listening to them since Age of Winters, the first album, and it's really kind of cool to where now that's like atmospheric, and they're got all these new toys they're playing with on the album, and you know, there's like it's no longer just 4 on the floor shred, which, you know, hey, I am never saying anything bad about 4 on the floor shredding, but you know, that idea when you go to the show, that mixture, because I mean, Winter's Wolves is great, but I wanted to hear the new stuff live. You know, I want to hear you pull it off with the new equipment and hear that B3 Hammond organ all of a sudden, and you know that cool stuff.
Another band that'll do that too. They'll come out and play literally all their new stuff. Is Clutch.
Absolutely.
They'll do a show where they play almost nothing old. I love that.
Yeah, absolutely. Good old Neil Fallon, man.
Fun time.
10,000-pound voice and 130-pound body.
Right.
Well, while you guys have been discussing the finer points of new music at metal shows, which I think is a great topic.
Have you been doing research?
And we should continue. But I took that moment to do a little research. I haven't tasted it yet, but on the nose, we've got some hops happening here, people.
Well, let me tell you. First off, on the nose is there's hops, but it's not a bright hops.
No,
it's dank
more,
and dark hops.
Yeah, it really is. And I will.
Goes back to that whole college story. These hops.
We don't talk about that incident.
Jabberwocky.
Anyway, it's called Jabberwocky. So the initial taste of this blossoms right there on the front of the taste as a bright malty kind of flavor, and then rolls into this dank hoppy finish that's almost like you know what newly mown grass smells like, like that on the retrohale after you take your first sip. This is pretty darn good.
I tell you what, this is, for an Imperial, very drinkable. It's not usually, with, you know, when you open a bottle, especially if it's, you know, a larger bottle of Imperial IPA, you're like, I'm going to enjoy sipping and tasting this, and then when I'm done, I'm going to go have a beer that I can drink.
Absolutely.
You know, this is surprisingly drinkable.
It's got a little bit of the pine cone hoppy feel to it, but not like you're chewing on, like it's passing by, and then leaves you with this little malty sweetness right off the end, and then that like freshly mown grass.
Well, and I was just about to say,
great, with a little bitterness.
It's clean enough on the back palate that you get that bitter and malty. It doesn't just like, you know, like we talked about like a couple shows ago, that like that coating sticky. Like you're not gonna you don't get that.
It's in an odd twist. This has, I think, a lot of the hoppiness more in the front and the middle. And then more maltiness on the end, which is a little backwards, I think, than
for
a
what
lot
you'd expect for an Imperial, especially. Yes.
So and I do like the fact that they kept that malt profile in there, because especially some of the big West Coast ones, man, it's like they try and really just chemical that out or something. I don't know what they're doing.
Hops to death.
Well, here's something interesting, because this cigar, not being like a heavier cigar, this I'd say is a solid medium. I was a little worried the Imperial would just knock it right off the palate, and it doesn't at all. It actually pairs very nicely.
It actually knocks out a little bit of the center of my cigar as far as the flavor goes, but what it leaves, and I don't know if you remember at the very beginning of this when I first... hi, Steven. This is actually the Imperial IPA, not just the regular IPA. But anyway, when I first lit this cigar, I said it had a toast and butteriness to it. Well, that butteriness went away, but after trying this, that butteriness and toastiness is back.
Yes.
Like, this almost tastes like breakfast now.
Interesting.
It's really interesting how it's interacted
how it changes
with the cigar.
it changes the flavor
what
profile.
I'm tasting in the cigar.
Incidentally, the comment from Steven Richardson, one of my very best friends from high school. What's up, Steve? He's also a fan of the Yellow Rose IPA. Said it's very good. Reminds him of Lagunitas. which I will say Lagunitas is a go-to for me. Like
Lagunitas is a good
it's one of the easier IPAs to find. Sometimes you can find it at a restaurant that doesn't have as big of a choice of things, and so it's a great one. And you're right. There's some similarities between those two beers.
Not
This
only
one
that,
though.
But Lagunitas, I'll buy anything from them. That's a brewery where every beer I've had from them is.
I love their
Yeah,
little
they don't really
something.
put out like a bad. It's kind of like these guys. It's just solid. They just make well thought out, well crafted beer.
I also like about Lagunitas that they're, while some places seem to specialize, Stone specializes in IPA and so on. Lagunitas, they're all over the place, but
Absolutely.
everything is good.
Yeah.
And it's
Agreed.
kind of like St. Arnold. It's like they're all over the place in terms of styles, but everything they make is just really well made.
As IPAs are not really my absolute favorites, I think this is a great IPA. This is outstanding. It's flavor balanced. It's a big IPA. It is huge, but it's balanced enough to where it's very drinkable.
It'd be a good food beer. First beer, not so much. It would be kind of lost unless you're just eating barbecue, But this one,
what would you pair this with?
This beer, I would go. I mean, obviously, like pretty classic pub fare would be on like a really amazing fish and chips with this.
Oh,
would be
nice.
I can see that.
like a home run. But also, like I would go like carnitas, like grilled pork.
Very nice.
Maybe
Yes,
not necessarily
pulled pork,
going like just straight fajita route, but
Right. So I'm going to go even the other direction too, because IPAs, as a general rule, will always pair with a rye whiskey.
certainly.
And I think that this would go great with a really nice, big, round rye kind of whiskey.
Certainly.
Like a Whistle Pig or what's the one? Oddly enough, the Basil Hayden rye is quite good.
Very difficult to find, but quite good.
Says the guy whose job it is to find things like that and stock them in his bar.
Well, that's the thing. Is like certain ryes are like unicorns. Like for anybody out there, if you wanted to just like send me a Booker's rye, I am haplessly crowdsourcing, like shameless charity. But no, this would absolutely go great with a rye. This would actually be really good in like a shandy style cocktail. So you could even do the rye with this with some orange bitters and like something like that would also be awesome as well.
Would not recommend turning this upside down in a margarita.
No.
Actually, let me just go on record
is
here.
that everywhere in the country, by the way, or is that just Texas?
Let me just go on the record here. I wouldn't recommend turning any beer upside down in a margarita. Okay, maybe that's just me, but I don't.
Barry Hill would disagree with you vehemently.
I agree. I understand, but just not my thing. What is as we move on, because I want to talk about this Texas cigar lawsuit real quick. But what is your biggest unicorn right now? Like, what's the holy grail that you're searching for, and when you find it, it's going to make your day.
If you want me to talk like business, just straight business style, like Weller 12. Listen, Buffalo Trace, it's ridiculous now.
I love getting them going.
Well, no, I mean, it's just that there's so many, and I get it, I really do, and it's awesome that their whiskey has become so in demand, and they stick by. We only make so much of it. It's cool. Which, by the way, pour a little out for Barton Distillery. 20,000 barrels hit the ground. Some are in the river. They haven't released how many they lost. So, but thoughts and prayers or whatever Facebook things we can send to them. But no, it's
a sad emoji.
Yeah, there you go. But honestly, from a business perspective, I would say Blanton's and Yamazaki are the ones that are just kind of killing me right now because everybody knows them, everybody loves them. You only, you get what you get each week, kind of thing. So, and the cool thing is, most people that drink the allocated whiskeys know what it is. So if you're out of it, they're not like, oh, that's it, I'm leaving. B&B sucks. Like they understand, like the whiskey world is where it's at right now.
It is what it is.
I just wish I was on the list of allocated.
Sometimes so do I, and you would think. I mean, I'm just saying, like
20 of them go here, 20 of them go here, and one goes to Ian.
Sometimes I feel like I am the one. I'm just saying. But on a personal level, I would say probably that, like the Booker's Rye or the E.H. Taylor 4 grain.
Oh yeah.
I mean, those are both just that they're very limited releases. Like I know they released the Bookers once. I don't even know if they've released the rye more than like once or twice. And then the E.H. Taylor is annual. It's just it's a barrel. So, whatever it is, 2,400 bottles or something, and that's it. Like,
We just have to get Chris Hart back on the show so we can try all those things. Because we know you have them.
Yes, well,
I'm quite sure.
He's got a special bottle of Blanton's that they'll be opening early at the Houston Whiskey Social. It will be completely gone by the end of the VIP session.
Houston.
Which, by the way, I would still like to buy Chris Hart a whiskey. Just come to B&B.
Okay, well, Chris.
That's
well,
out there.
Actually, we should have both of you together on the 100th show here in a few weeks.
Outstanding.
So I'm sure there will be plenty of whiskey available. I'm just guessing.
I'm planning on not working that day, so just so we know.
So are we, by the way. No, that's real quick before we take a break here. The cigar lawsuits against the FDA have been kind of back and forth. They've been up and down. One of the things that was very interesting is our friend Manny El Cubano Lopez and another cigar retailer in Texas had joined together and had filed a lawsuit against the FDA in the state of Texas. And this was a good thing because it meant that the FDA had to kind of like fight on two fronts, basically. So it gave the cigar industry sort of two chances to get a ruling that might be more in the favor of the industry, which could then be built upon.
Absolutely.
On Monday, U.S. Magistrate Judge Kimberly Priest Johnson reversed her earlier ruling and has granted the FDA their motion to transfer the Texas case to the U.S. District Court for the District of Columbia. She originally said that the cases were different enough to be tried separately, and now she's basically agreeing with the FDA that they are similar enough that they could be tried together in the same court. The reason that she gave was because since the plaintiffs had filed an appeal of the final judgment in favor of the defendants and have also filed a motion to stay or motion for injunction pending the appeal or resolution, basically it's the stay or injunction of the enforcement of this has caused her to look at it as being similar enough. I'm not sure I agree, but that was her.
Sounds to me like
thing,
somebody's
basically.
checkbook opened.
Yeah. It kind of does. It's not necessarily a win for the cigar industry, although it's not a loss specifically. But now we have
It's a little bit of a lateral move.
Yeah, well, we have one less shot basically at getting
They call that
the kind of
promotion by
ruling
title.
that we want it. Yeah. So for the moment, all eyes are turning to the August 10th deadline for when warning label requirements were set to go into effect. These are the warning labels, by the way, that have to be 1/3 the size of the cigar or box of cigars, which is just ridiculous.
That's crazy.
No industry has to do anything like that.
And whatever you do, don't make them brightly colored because then it's just like candy and kids will have a challenge and eat them.
Both the Texas courts and the D.C. courts have made it clear they're aware of this deadline, and they're pushing to make a ruling on potential injunctions or stays before that date. So stay tuned. We'll keep you up to speed with what's going
and
on.
Labeling, like, I can't imagine, like, so obviously if you've ever been to Europe or places like that, right, like, I mean, it's pretty heavy duty, like the warnings they have, like, it pretty much just says death in a box and has like a picture of like a black lung
Right,
or whatever.
Yep.
Well, here's my thing. You ever been to France? Do you know how many people smoke there? All of them.
Yes, everybody.
Like,
Yeah.
literally, there's like 8-year-old kids on the freaking player. Like, it's all pointless. I just don't care. Like, it's just like, so clearly the labels, like, I don't care what you put on it. Like,
Well,
you're going to, like,
I
you either want to
lived-
be James Dean or you don't, you know?
I lived in Los Angeles in the 90s when there were some adjustments, I believe, to the cigarette label warning packaging. And there was a company that basically came out with a cigarette. Everybody called it Death Cigarettes. I don't know what the actual brand name was, but it was essentially a black cigarette case or box with a skull and crossbones on it and the warning. It became the fastest selling cigarette in
Kidding
Los
me?
Angeles.
Everybody at the Viper Room
Everybody
bought
had
those.
to have it, yeah. And they're probably still there smoking them all these years later.
most of them.
Surgeon General's warning: you're gonna die.
Yeah, most
Well,
of them. I got that. That's good.
Well, it is the Viper Room. They don't exactly, pardon me, Viper Room, but they don't exactly have a great track record.
All right, we are going to take a break. And when we come back, I think you're going to figure out a spirit
Yes.
for us.
Oh,
to taste
yes.
tonight, huh?
I'm thinking we might go around the world on this one. We might do something weird.
All right,
We'll
that'll
talk
be
about
next. That'll be next. We are going to take a quick break, although we'll still be on Facebook Live. This is Smoking a Toast, and we'll be right back.
So here's the question. Do we want to do whiskey? Do we want to do something weird? Have we done aquavit before?
Yeah,
I don't think we have actually.
We could do that.
I'm
Norwegian spirit.
I've had aquavit.
Yeah, the Linny aquavit is pretty cool. I'm half tempted to just bring some 1792 out because that's the Barton Distillery. Like, hey, drink it now because it's gonna get way more expensive.
Oh yeah.
I'm down with that. If you want to go, whatever you want to do.
Let me go look real quick.
We had that last time we were here. We had that campfire. It was really nice too. Yeah.
That was really enjoyable.
High West.
And how good was that?
Yours on your battery says has 17 minutes left.
17 minutes.
Until then, yeah.
All right, so pause it, shut the top, save as much battery as possible, and maybe we'll make this is segment 4?
Going into segment 4.
Yeah, okay, so maybe we'll try to make
The
this the
segment
last
2
one.
is about 25 minutes.
Maybe we'll try to make
About
this.
15.
Maybe we'll try to make this. Man, I totally should have. I just thought I don't need it. I haven't used it downstairs, so.
More
The good thing
technicals.
is I can always pull audio from the video.
Right, did that work when you did it the last time? Okay.
So there'll be a slight audio change, but it won't be.
Well, if we
won't
have
be
to.
bad.
Oh, all right.
While you're doing that, I'm gonna run the restroom real quick. I will be right back.
Oh, yeah.
Good sir, can I pass you a beverage?
Thank you so much.
You don't even have to pour this one.
Thank you, sir.
There for our compatriot. It is a glorious day to be off.
It really is. Because I thought it was going to be hotter than this, but this has turned out to be beautiful.
This could not have worked out better. Because I fully expected, like, normally, that's the thing, is like, I'm so glad I'm off, because normally I have to sit up here in, like, a partial suit, and today I just got to wear, like, golf shorts and a Tommy Bahama,
That's
you know?
awesome, yeah.
But I'm pretty sure last time we did the show up there, I had to go stand in the walk-in cooler for, like, 30 minutes.
Oh my God, dude, yeah, you were in a full, like,
Oh, yeah.
3-piece suit that day. Ian's got his volume up. And so once he's back, we'll get into this.
I didn't realize we were fully audio live the whole time.
Yeah.
I'm going to have to remember that.
So Adam, what we'll do is we'll go ahead and do this segment, and then do on the last segment, just get the audio off of it. That way we're not doing it like mid-segment. So. And I'll try to maybe keep these segments a little shorter.
What is this?
This is aquavit.
It's like whiskey, but
With licorice. Yeah, absolutely. It's like anise and dill and coriander and caraway. It actually crosses the equator twice. We'll talk about it. Like, just a cool. This is just a really unique spirit.
Yeah.
I get that dill a lot. Dill. Definitely get that on the dill.
And this is very much a food spirit.
Right, so we'll talk about that, yeah.
This is kind of one of those that just lends itself to being paired with food.
Is this often mixed or drinking straight? Straight?
Right.
Actually, you can mix it. You can make good cocktails.
It makes amazing Bloody Marys.
Yeah.
I make it like old fashioned at my house a lot, which is cool. But I tend to try that with like a lot of spirits. For me, that's like the default. It's like, because like a lot of people have this idea that old fashioned is like a cocktail.
Right.
It's not. Like old fashioned refers to when people would order their whiskey and they say, "How do you want it?" and they would say old fashioned, the old fashioned way, which is sugar and bitters. Because
which isn't really a cocktail. It was just a style of how to drink the whiskey, right?
Yes, and technically that sort of became the base for the definition of cocktail. To be considered a cocktail, to have 4 ingredients, which is sweetener, spirit, aromatic, water.
And, okay. All right, you ready to jump in?
I'm down like 4 flat tires.
Number 4, here we go. Adam, tell me when you're ready. You may have to hit record again. I think if you move the cursor all the way to the end. Oh, you ready? Okay. Here we go. Welcome back. It's Smoking and Toasting. It's show number 95. We are talking about spirit and food pairings, and we are live at B&B Butchers and Restaurant in Houston with our special guest, Jeremiah Butler. B&B is at 1814 Washington Ave in Houston, and in Fort Worth, it's in the shops at Clear Fork. And you mentioned last time you were on that Fort Worth is doing really well.
Very well.
That's awesome.
Really, really cool, man. Great location. Like we definitely like. Ben is very sage in his choices of places to put things.
Can you talk at all about what might be in the future for you guys?
I can.
Yeah.
So we will be opening a, I don't know whether to call it a bar, brasserie, pub, but kind of like a really cool hybrid across the street that would be called Cafe Lemon.
So across the street from B&B.
From B&B here at
Cafe
1814.
Lemon.
Yeah, so if you're familiar with what used to be Caddy Shacks, that will become BB Lemon.
And
Cafe Lemon.
what's the vibe of the place going to be?
I'm not going to dive too much into that, but it'll be more, just think like kind of more like a high-end neighborhood like pub.
Oh, cool. Fun.
Really cool. We've got like a really, really neat executive chef working on stuff over there. A guy named Eric Johnson.
Love his guitar
player.
I asked him. He's like, "No, I never get that. I'm only from Austin. Like, I only lived in Austin for like 9 years. No, nobody ever asked me that question at all." But no.
Reminds me of the time I spent like $25 for tickets to see some guy named Stevie Roy Vaughan. Don't do it,
man.
Don't do it.
Or was it Gallagher that had his brother doing his stand up for years?
Yeah, brother of Gallagher.
His brother was doing the stand up
No,
for years.
as Gallagher. No, I was going to say that he wouldn't stop. He's like, "You're not me, quit."
And then he just absorbed it and started making money off it. And he had 2 Gallaghers. So there's Gallagher and Gallagher 2.
Yeah, and oddly enough, even when multiplied by 2, it still wasn't funny enough for one show. But I digress. Sorry, not a
that was awesome.
Not a Gallagher fan. I'm sorry.
Come on, giant couches and smashed watermelons.
Yeah. I mean, okay, it was funny for 5 minutes the first time.
Yeah, but my giant couch is better than your giant couch.
Yeah.
Can you see that argument?
I smashed watermelons with bigger pieces or smaller.
Can you imagine the business meetings now? Hey, brother, your giant couch isn't up to spec.
It was more fun watching David Letterman throw watermelons off the top of his.
That is absolutely a true story.
Yes, absolutely. So. Okay, so it's spirits time, and we've been talking about food and spirits pairing, and that gave you an idea for something that we should really taste on the show.
So this is Linny Aquavit.
And now for something completely different.
Absolutely, and it is very different. It kind of doesn't fit into any of the normal categories that we would typically visit on the show. It's not a whiskey. It's not a rum.
And it's from Norway.
This is Norwegian.
I thought they only made ice wine in Norway.
No, man. They make some great aquavit. And actually, they make very regional aquavits as well. Like I have one at home that a really, really amazing regular of mine brought me, for example, called Gamel Opland. And so Opland is a region, and then Gamel refers to like the age. So Gamel is like very old, so like very aged aquavit from Opland.
Okay.
So with aquavit, typically made from like mixtures, grains, potatoes. There's not like as far as I know, there's not hard and fast rules about mash bills or how they do that. This particular one is really kind of cool because through happenstance a long time ago, they left the spirit on the bow of a boat. Well, that boat left Norway and didn't come back for like 8 months, and it crossed the equator twice, so the story goes, and all this stuff, and they got it back, and the story is that they couldn't afford to throw it away, so like, well, F this, we're going to bottle it and see what happens. to this day, they're still sending it on a boat. So, like, if you look on the back, actually,
got the
it actually
trajectory.
shows the trip that it takes.
I wish we had
crosses
a
the
background
equator
screen
twice.
where we
That's
could have
very
a
interesting.
map with the dotted line, like where it goes.
Actually, we're working on that.
Green screen.
We're working on that. Yes.
We can put all kinds of cool stuff
So
on a green screen.
Aquavit, I've actually had Aquavit before.
Yes.
And there's an interesting little place in Smithville, Texas called Bone Spirits Distillery. I don't know if you're
Yes.
familiar with
Valhalla.
that. They make a, by the way, we've had their Dirty June gin.
And it's
on our show.
delicious,
It's an
yes.
aged
Yeah, which is the
Imperial
Moody
thing.
June. Yeah.
It's the Moody June, but
But the
aged,
Dirty June,
and
the Dirty
it
June
is
is phenomenal.
unbelievable.
Yeah.
And
I
that
still
is a
have a little of
great.
that at home that you gave me.
That's a great smoking gin.
Yes, but also they make an Aquavit there, which is what
Valhalla.
I think the first time I tried it was there.
Now, their aquavit is more of the. It's as much as Scandinavian can be northern and southern. So, like with aquavits, like the Norwegian and Danish aquavits, and like, please, this is not a category that's like my exact strength, but I do love them and have quite a collection at home. So the thing about the aquavits is, if you go to more like the Swedish styles and the Swiss styles, they tend to be more almost like snaps, like liqueurs. Like they have like
Right.
like a very heavy anise.
They're a little thicker.
This has a little
Thicker
bit
and
of anise in
sweeter.
it.
Now
You
this
can-
has the anise, but the Danish and because Aalborg is my other favorite besides Linny. These two are more kind of vegetal. Like they have the anise in the nose, but not as much on the palate. And
Yeah, there's quite a bit of it on the nose there.
but then when it hits your tongue, you don't get that overwhelming, licorice flavor. You get that coriander and caraway and dill, and
Wow.
like
Dill, I didn't. That's
Big
what I was trying to
time
nail.
dill.
oh, the
something, yeah.
dill is 100%,
Yeah.
and so
That's
that's
almost
why,
like a pickle. It's so
well, and
dillish.
that's why this. So one of the things in Norway with aquavit is you take little tiny shots like this, and they serve it with
Pickled herrings.
very heavily salted fish.
Well,
or
that's how they.
cured lamb.
I was going to say that's how they prepare so much of their food
Absolutely.
there because of the cold.
Absolutely. And so here, a lot of times what I'll do is if I have a table that, like, I want to do a cool pairing, is I'll do this with our lamb bacon. So it's a cured, salty, smoky lamb
I
dish.
can see
Wow.
this going with very
Served
salty,
with
very.
a little bit of that grain mustard on the bottom. And this is perfect because you get that vegetal note from the dill in here. You get all those kind of cool aged flavors
Right.
from the barrel, but it's not overwhelmingly like wooded or anything like that. It's a very interesting, unique.
So what's really amazing, like you smell the anise, like you're talking about, and the interesting thing too is this is a slightly overproof as well.
Yes.
and it drinks almost like a liqueur. It's got a sweetness and a really nice, like you said, the vegetal kind of flavors. It's got all those spices in there. It's
This is-
very.
Absolutely amazing digestive.
Wow.
After you
I
eat
bet.
a big
Yes.
meal,
Yes.
sit down with a cigar like a medium like that right there, and this, man, it's like magic. Your tummy relaxes, everybody's happy. You don't have to take a nap. It's an amazing digestivo.
So,
But this is something that here at the restaurant you will very commonly see me pair with one of our appetizers.
I'm amazed. There's almost no heat to this at all.
No.
Even
No, it's very
over
drinkable,
40.
yeah.
Even at over 40%. It's
Well, and Adam and I were talking before
Almost no heat
the
at
segment
all.
started. Bloody Marys. This makes an unbelievable Bloody Mary.
Who would have thunk it?
yeah, I bet. Well,
Yeah.
it reminds me in many ways of a gin, just because
Absolutely.
it's so botanical.
Yes.
But it doesn't
Yeah.
have the gin sort of flavor to go with that, and it doesn't have the lavender.
It
but
doesn't have that
certainly has-
dryness that the
Yes.
gin generally has.
Well, and it's a different aging. Obviously, gin is very rarely aged.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas this, so kind of the idea and why it works. To put this in perspective, to like reel the whiskey fans back in, think about Jefferson's Ocean.
yeah.
They put it on the bow of a ship. They let it do its thing.
Mm-hmm.
So the idea with this is everywhere this boat goes, there's different salinity in the air. There's
Right.
different barometric pressure. The wave heights are different. So this wood is affected by all these different factors. So it's a very unique.
Just infinite variables.
I mean, yeah, you can't like. I don't know which one is the one that contributes the most to it. Like, it's like, is it the pressure? Is it the salt? Is it the waves? Like, who knows?
Yeah, the movement, just the movement
It's
in
huge.
the barrel makes a huge difference.
Absolutely.
Because when you store a barrel, I don't know how many times it is. When you store a barrel, you turn the barrels every so often.
Yes,
to get
the
some
the
movement.
racking technique.
Right, the racking. So you turn it every once in a while, but that's not like in there swishing around. When you put this on a ship, there's no way to hold it still.
No.
Like you're on a ship, the whole thing's moving.
Absolutely.
And
Well,
so-
hopefully.
Right.
If it's not, you got a problem.
Something's broken. But yeah, so that constant agitation, just even that has a lot more to do with the wood. That's why
Absolutely.
you've had the oceans, right?
Oh, yeah.
Which is fantastic.
That's a
Really
great,
interesting. Yeah.
that is a great dram. It really is.
I could see this appealing to vodka drinkers who are ready to take like a next step.
Absolutely.
Because it's got sort of that cleanness of vodka, but the different botanicals and flavors in here give
and
it
kinda
more
like
complexity.
Where Ian compared it to a gin, like this is like you could literally like substitute this in for a gin in any classic cocktail. So like a Last Word or a Corpse Reviver. Instead of the gin, you could literally just throw this in, plug and play, and it's just going to add this really amazing complexity and sort of different vegetal note, like a different botanical note. Because gin is very predictable.
Right.
Like, I mean, but I don't mean to say that like discounting
Depending on which one you got, you know what you're getting in it.
right. Typically, like if I see London Dry, like okay, it's gonna be
You
this
know what
flavor
Hendrix is
profile.
gonna taste like when
Absolutely,
you get it,
cucumber
yeah.
and rose. Which by the way,
Yeah.
shout out to William Grant on the Hendrix note.
Yeah. And
Shameless
big
plug.
shouts to our very good friend Mattias
Horseman,
Yeah.
he's so fun.
from Hendrix.
Oh, I was just the bar poet. # bar poet.
Hashtag
Hashtag bar poet.
We're talking about food and liquor combinations and pairings. Are you familiar with the cupcake shop Sprinkles? You heard of these
I
guys?
have heard of this. Is it?
Okay.
I've seen that place.
Yeah, there's a few of them around Houston. Well, they have now teamed up with Tito's, and they are offering vodka-infused limited edition cupcakes.
Interesting.
The first one is called Tito's Down Home Punch. It's only available for a few more days, by the way. It's an orange cake filled with berry pomegranate compote and topped with Tito's infused lemonberry marble frosting. The second one, which is coming out on the 9th of this month, is the Tito's American Mule. A ginger cake studded with crystallized ginger and topped with a Tito's infused lime frosting. They're available at any Sprinkles location.
The edible Moscow Mule.
That
You gotta
sounds
love
pretty
that,
fun.
man.
I'm not mad at it.
We were talking about the food pairings before. This was months back, but I think I even posted this on Bourbon Society page or whatever. But me and my wife were sitting down, and on a very rare occasion, we were having ice cream. I was eating my ice cream, and I was enjoying it, but I thought this is missing something. And I look over at my shelf, and I see my Michter's American Whiskey. I know, like it's so obvious, right? And I just took it and poured a shot over it. How delicious!
Yeah, see,
Like
I
so
know it.
good,
I
just
know
like
it.
that.
I'm going to tell you how delicious. Very, very delicious.
It was like it took my ice cream to 11.
right.
This one went to 11.
When we come back, we'll see if Goose Island has managed to go to 11 with Lolita. Well, let's see how it compares with the Sophie, at least, which has been a favorite
do it.
on the show.
And this
So-
is still brewed at the original location.
Yes, it is, in Chicago. And we'll do this when we come back. It's Smoking and Toasting. We're live at B&B talking about spirit and food pairings.
Do I get to drop the mic now?
Not yet. Last segment.
Okay, so I think Adam's going to, stop the recording and do the last segment. What, it did?
Yeah.
Okay. I was hoping to finish the segment before it did, but somebody was wrong one. No.
There's probably been. It's my day off. I never get that.
That's all right. We can repair this.
My cigar, unfortunately, on the very tail end is starts
just
coming
about
apart. But, I mean, up to this point, it's been amazing. Like, I will buy that again. Even
Which
with
is
that.
Wait, I was gonna say, which is at the end of the day, that's the question.
Because I was, I think, a $12
That's
or
not bad for
$13 cigar.
Dude, that tubo load has to be worth.
Yeah,
So-
that's $33.
Feel the weight on that thing.
Oh, I know. I thought there was a cigar still in it. I was like, oh, you brought another one? Like,
I'm actually going to keep that because I'll toss in cigars to fit for
But
carrying
drones.
around. Yeah, exactly. for
box
carrying around.
pressed all day. This thing is still, by the way.
I love that.
The best, yeah.
This is just awesome.
The nice thing is under that tray is a Bovita pack. It fits under there perfect. Yeah.
Ian, can I borrow your knife?
Knife? Yes. How'd you know I
I
had?
bought from
Just a guess.
from Jonathan Fiant. The guy Jay London, the guy the Cigars by Jonathan guy.
Yeah.
I bought a humidor from him before he moved back to Philly recently. I actually got the Maximus Diamond Cut limited humidor.
Nice.
Like I have number 240 something out of 450.
Nice.
Yeah, and I got it for a song.
Nice.
I've got to re-season my humidor. I was thinking about maybe making a show out of that.
I would actually be very intrigued.
Oh, you
by
should
that
totally
show.
just shoot video of you doing it.
Yeah.
I was
And then
going
we'll
to
put
say that'd be
segments in.
awesome, like tutorial style.
Yeah. So that's something I've got to do. I've got to get a couple of those big Bovita bags because I've got a lot of cigars in the humidor.
Yeah. I know I need some more Bovita too. I'm glad you reminded me of that. All right, we're ready for the final segment. Here we go. Welcome back. It is Smoking and Toasting. It's show number 95, meaning we are only, 4 shows away from number 100. The Smoking and Toasting 100th show free-for-all. We're getting extra microphones and extra board, and we're going to have as many guests as we can cram onto the show. Everybody tasting, talking about what they're tasting, bringing things they want everyone to try. It's going to be kind of like, it'll be kind of like if you had a really cool party at your house, only the people that you invited were all like beer, spirit, and cigar people who brought stuff.
Yeah. See, I like that because I was thinking it's kind of like a really cool party, except you invited me.
Yeah, well, every party has to have that person.
Yeah, there's a token
that
guy.
everybody
It's
else
okay.
can talk about after the party. That's why that's a good party.
Fair enough.
Balancing the guest list for a good party is a really important thing to be able to do. So I just wanted to point out we were talking about the Goose Island label earlier in the show, and I don't know if you can see that on the camera, but the top of that has the original
Silhouette.
Goose Island logo, which was the goose kind of looking back, and then that changed to that more straight ahead looking larger goose.
Ironically
And
enough.
see, there you go.
The goose.
There you go. Yeah.
Well, so my tattoo is actually a tattoo for the symbol of the word Sankofa,
which
which
means?
is an East African word, which means the literal translation is go back and fetch it. But the idea is like don't forget where you come from. So it's a bird
nice.
flying forwards but looking backwards.
Don't forget where you come from.
Oh, I knew he might show up.
Oh my gosh! Nobody said.
Speaking of whiskey.
And you got here just in time to try the Lolita.
Oh man, hey, pull up a chair and a glass, brother. Don't be shy.
While he's doing that, let me do
Dude, I'll share a mic with Krockenberger anytime.
Fair enough. How are you, buddy?
Good sir.
Good.
I don't think we got much of the sound there. It was a fairly quiet opening, but I'm going to pass that over to Adam so he can load that Lolita.
I'm
into
sure
some
it's
drinking
loud in
cups
the
for
bottle.
us. Yeah, I'm
Right.
guessing so.
Big
So-
and loud on the flavor.
So Goose Island started experimenting. I know this from reading the book. Started experimenting very early in their existence with beers that nobody else was really trying to do the same way, and that's where the Sophie and Matilda came from. And this one is another one in that vein. We'll see how it holds up. So let's say hello to our new guest.
I'm going to pass the mic off. So this is I'll do the introduction.
Yes,
this
please.
is Mr. Frank Krockenberger from Beam Suntory. I'm quite sure you've all seen him.
Adam,
Are
when
we
you
still
get
on the
a
video
second, will
thing?
you
Yes, we are.
turn
still
it
on.
in
I'm quite sure
slightly
y'all have
so
seen
we
or
get,
heard him on the
Frank
show
in there?
before. But please, Frank, go ahead.
So I have a correction for you.
You might have to scoot up.
Oh,
though,
sure,
Frank,
sorry.
just to
Yeah,
make sure
just
you're in
out
the
of
video
screen
shot.
as we
Yeah,
hadn't accounted for.
Well,
you.
that was the
So
play I
just-
planned it.
yeah.
Kind of an ugly guy.
Out of the screen.
See, just
I was going to say, if you lean forward just enough, you'll completely
Can you
block
turn
out.
that just a little to get
Jeremiah,
him
yeah.
in the screen as well.
Perfect.
I'll pitch forward pretty far so that. My wife to the rescue. There we
Yes.
go.
unintended podcast.
Yeah.
appearance. I like
So
it.
you mentioned you had to correct something.
I
What is
do.
it?
I have to correct you. I have a different job now.
Outstanding.
Yeah.
Luxury specialist.
No, as a matter of fact,
Oh,
you're
no.
staring at the new luxury specialist.
Hi, Mr. New Luxury Specialist.
His name's Frank as well.
Okay, Frank too.
No, Frank Fernandez. Two is a weird last name.
Yes.
T-O-O, I thought, or T-O-U-I.
Oh, I
French,
see.
You know.
I see.
I think of myself as a luxury specialist, but certainly no one's ever given me that title.
The title, right?
Yeah. So what does a luxury specialist do exactly?
So what my old former job was, and what he does now, is managing the Beam Centauri portfolio for Houston on our higher end restaurants, bars, craft cocktail scene, fine dining, hotels, things of that nature.
Aren't that big of shoes to fill, by the way.
Ouch, man.
Hey, you don't come see me for a long day. You just show up in the podcast. That's what you get.
All right, that's fair. That's fair. I'm now the Maker's Mark diplomat for Texas and Louisiana. So yeah.
I was wondering how you get an even better
Very
name
well.
than luxury
Very
specialist,
well.
but that's amazing.
Got it.
Smart diplomat. I mean,
I love it.
It's kind of like a brand ambassador, but
let me-
steak dinners for every.
that's right.
Let me just
Awesome.
take this moment to point out my latent anger at my high school guidance counselor, who never let me know those jobs existed or were available.
Well, to be fair, I have a
to
degree
that.
in art, so
I'm just saying, a Maker's Mark diplomat, I would have signed up for that as a junior. Come on. Yeah.
we actually have some interns at Makers now doing that, which is interesting. Yeah.
So you've joined us just in time to taste the Lolita from Goose Island. And we did a whole show about Goose Island last week, but we weren't able to find this until this week, so I thought this would be our sort of follow-up to that. And, Goose Island, some of their beers we loved, some we were just okay with. But this is a completely different category. And I see right now you're pointing at the glass and shaking your head.
I already went ahead and did some research. Holy cow, this is amazing and savory and just not what I expected.
Now this
Totally caught me off guard.
This is not brewed in the same vats as Bud and Bud Light.
For sure.
This is still brewed on site at the original Goose
The original
Island
Goose
Brewery,
Island. Yeah.
as far as I understand it, and this is still made, in-house, so to speak.
And in fairness to that comment, the reason that Ian said that is because the 312 Wheat Ale and for a long time the Honkers Ale were in fact brewed in Bud Light tanks in some of the different Anheuser-Busch breweries once AB InBev bought Goose Island.
They were outsourced originally to keep up with the demand, yeah. So, but they kept a lot of their what do they call this? With this series, I can't remember what they call this series, but this whole series with
Like
the white
a
label
reserve
generally,
of some kind.
Yes.
is generally still brewed in-house. This is pretty amazing.
Man,
Yeah,
that
this is
so
it's a wild
good.
ale, and it's got a little bit of the sour tartness to it. Would you classify it as a sour, Ian?
Oh, yes. And when you say a little bit, it's a lot of sour. I mean, this is a very sour beer. And a lot of people don't like sour beers. I love sour beers.
Literally, it tastes like Orange Crush, beer, and chicken stock. And I mean that in the best way possible, like in an amazing
It
combination.
does, with the chicken stock, I can see that. It has a little funk to it, but
Maybe
it's
it's-
supposed to.
maybe
It's
it's Goose
salty,
stock.
savory. Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. But I mean, I'm telling you, like
Goose
this,
stock.
like totally caught me off guard. This is phenomenal.
Wow. It is incredibly complex.
Yes.
Like, I'm not sure I can even... There's definitely some sort of, like, wilder berry flavor, not...
Almost tomatoey,
Yes.
Maybe, yeah.
Yes.
like cherry tomatoes, like
It's
heirloom
got a
cherry
little of that
tomatoes.
acidity to it.
Yeah.
So and it just leaves your mouth watering like crazy.
Well,
Well-
this is a food. Like I want more beer and I want food. Like
Yes.
that's immediately you drink
so,
it. It's like,
so we've been talking pairing. What
Absolutely.
What kind of food do you pair this with?
Yes.
Apple pie.
Yes.
I pair this
Apple
with
pie.
yes, apple pie, absolutely, chicken shank, pork chops,
Oh, yeah.
bacon.
I can see with pork chops a lot.
Oh
yeah.
my gosh! Like
Wow.
Cheesecake.
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 Yeah,
Wow.
absolutely.
Wow.
Cut through the fat, sour,
Yeah,
acidic.
yeah, yeah.
just oh my gosh!
Go get a sliced cheesecake.
I will.
I'm off the clock, Frank.
Well, this is really phenomenal. I mean, this is a. So this takes us back to that whole argument about the big boys buying the small guys, because Goose Island's been owned by AB InBev now for quite a few years, and yet they've still managed to make a very off the radar experimental beer like this. And one of the things that we were very critical of was them making the 312 Urban Wheat Ale and some of the others in those Budweiser tanks, but it was moving those out of the Chicago brewery
Right.
and making them in those tanks that allowed them the tank space to be able to experiment and do more of these kind of beers.
When
So
I would hope that that's more like when we talked about Carbach on the show. Same idea. Like I would hope that they would move to the AB InBev, like the stuff that's made all year, the big boys, like your Love Streets, your that kind of thing, and that way you can still keep Carbach. You can still make your like
Keep
boutique
the craft
stuff,
at
your,
the craft brewery.
your cowbell, exactly. And I mean, hey, dude, at some point everybody's got to, you have to go make your money.
Right.
So if you
It
can
is
do,
America.
and if you can do both, which I think that Goose Island is a great example of. I mean, I would even say, now that Frank's here, like a shameless plug for like where he's at, like like Beam Suntory, like being able to like have big brands that are absolutely massive, but still keep like your tiny releases, like every year the Lefroy Kerchis, being able to like say, hey, we can compete and we can dump gallons of whatever we need to meet a demand, but we are still craftsmen, like we are still artisans, and I think that balance is what makes or breaks when you get bought out.
It's the essence of the argument. It really is, and there's you can really argue that that all of that is true, and then at the same time, the craft guys, the smaller guys, are going to argue that the big guys are basically putting their thumb on them and keeping them from getting shelf space and a whole lot of other things.
I mean, I would challenge, like, and again, just because I happen to have Frank here, like, okay, then fine, go have a standard like old fashioned made with regular red top makers. Right, it's awesome. It's a great old fashioned, but then go and get the cask strengths, like the the smaller batch, the barrel, and like tell me it doesn't have more character, and like tell me at that point that they're not doing both things. Like I would challenge you to say that they can't be both things. Now there are some that can't. Like it's not for everybody. Obviously, they have a resource pool that maybe not every distillery or brewery has. But that's why if you're Carbach or St. Arnold or Goose, that's why you do it, is to get a bigger ability to experiment. Like if you have more money, you can do weirder stuff. You can buy more expensive ingredients. You can buy new tools or stills or vats or whatever you need to do cool stuff. Like
Ian, you may remember it was after the sale, a Carbach beer that was in in one of the 750 milliliter bottles, and it was a barley wine, and we both thought it was outstanding. Do you remember that?
I do.
It was I don't know,
I can't
maybe
think of the
15,
name
20 shows ago, and I'll have to go and look it up. But but it was fantastic.
Barley wine. I'm pretty sure I was
the
on
name
that
of it?
one for it.
That sounds right.
Oh man.
But yeah,
only-
and you know me, I love barley wines anyway. Big gnarly beers. I'm all about.
Triple bot. Speaking of Sam Adams, you remember the triple bot, the weird
I
blue
do.
bottle?
Well, here's
Soy
the thing.
sauce.
First time I ever tasted a beer
Here's the
that I
thing
was like,
about-
this doesn't even taste like beer.
Here's the thing about Sam Adams Triple Bock. I don't know that it was an amazing tasting beer, but it was an amazing beer, especially for the time.
It was so groundbreaking.
Yeah.
And Whippin', it goes back to literally the guy at the Whippin' was like, I don't know if you'll like it or not, but this is the weirdest beer I've ever had.
Nigel.
And I was,
Nigel
that's
was the
one.
name of the
Yeah.
barley wine.
but I was like, at the Whip, I mean, it's the Whippin'. You take his advice. Like
Right.
when you buy the variant 6-pack and he says this should be one of your 6, you say okay.
Right.
No problem.
And we, like me and my buddy James, like I mean, we didn't know what to do with it. Like we opened it and we poured it, and we were like sitting there, and I mean, at the time we didn't know. I don't know if I can profane, so we didn't know anything about.
You
beer.
can.
Like we didn't know shit from Shinola when it came to beer. Like literally, we were like 6 months past 40 parties in college. And so all of a sudden, I'm like drinking this triple bock, and I'm like, I don't even know what to do. I don't know what this is. Like, is this beer? Is this wine? Like, I don't even know. And for that time, it was amazing. Like, there was nothing going on. Like, I mean, you had like some really, really, I mean, like 1999.
Yeah.
Ian, as we get ready to wrap up here, about a $22 bottle at retail. Price to quality?
This is, well, so at $22, you expect it to be this good. Price to quality, I give it 5 to 5.5. This is worth every penny that you pay for it. I think, especially when you get a group of people like this that will appreciate it. You don't even have to like it, But trying something so different and so interesting like this and being able to appreciate it and talk about it, man, what a great conversation piece that becomes, you know?
Yes, absolutely.
So I'd say, 5.5 easy. It's an outstanding beer. It's sour like Petrus is.
It's really
if you've
sour,
never had
yeah.
Petrus, buy Petrus if you like sour ales.
It
But
almost
it's
sounds like a
sour
mix of
like that. But it's got more dank undertones and different things going on. It's fantastic.
Speaking of price to quality, final thoughts on your cigar?
So it actually came apart a little bit at the very end. Now, keep in mind, I'm smoking it a little longer than I probably should, and it started flaking just a little bit. I'm not even going to count that as a minus on that cigar. That cigar was great. I think I paid $12 to $13 for this cigar. I'm going to buy more of these. I'm going to give this a 5.5 to 6 again because this, to me, by the way, our price to quality index works 1 through 10. 5 is exactly what you pay for. You get less than 5, you're a little disappointed. More than 5, you feel like you actually got more than you paid for. I'm giving this a 5.5 to 6 because I feel like I really enjoyed that. The burn was fantastic. The flavor profile was great. It went great with all the different liquids we had today. And stood up, even though it's on the bottom side of probably a medium profile. I thought it was fantastic.
Good. Well, it's been quite a show. Thank you for having us again, Jeremiah.
Man, this has been an awesome show.
We didn't even get into all of the things that we can about tasting, so we'll just call this segment 1 on food pairings and tastings, and we'll be back to do more because I want to talk about cheese. Like, what kind of cheese is good with what kind of spirit?
Yes.
That's a whole show.
Yeah, exactly. So.
Because cheese is amazing and booze is amazing.
Yeah,
so,
absolutely.
that's like my 2 favorite food groups right there.
And there is your quote of the show: cheese is amazing and booze is amazing. And with that, we will bid you farewell from B&B Butchers and Restaurant in Houston. They are our sponsor and a lovely place to come and enjoy a great cigar and some good drinks. Have a great week,
And thanks,
my
Frank,
friends.
for stopping by.
Happy I was able to. Take care.